Hello, everybody! This is Leo.
This is Esteban.
Yes, this is Esteban, and this is who the profile is named after because he's a little vibrant little monster, and he can be tamed if he wants to, but he's mostly vibrant and colorful and very full of life, which is what I love about the profile. So, first of all, thank you all for not only supporting me, but supporting a small business and creator that is getting into the AI profile game. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited about all the feedback and all the results that we've gotten so far. What do you think of the profile? Is it good?
Yes.
Cool. All right, you can go play now. Okay. Go ahead. Bye, Leo. Okay, he's distracted with technology, so let's get down to business. I want to show you what my workflow looks like for Aftershoot and how I utilize the profile and how I adjust it based on the camera system that I'm using. So without further ado, let's do this. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to start off with Lightroom. I want to make sure that I explain a couple of things that I do in order to get the files prepared to go into Aftershoot. So once I import everything, there's a couple of things that I would definitely recommend doing. One of the main things would be to build smart previews for your images. So smart previews, if you don't know what smart previews are, just essentially just a smaller copy that Lightroom creates, where it doesn't require the raw images to be directly connected to Lightroom in order for you to edit the images. So you're able to edit without having the raw files present. So I usually work off of smart previews. It's just the workflow is a little bit faster. It's a little bit easier for you to be able to sort through the images. And it makes it easier for Aftershoot. So I generally will build them because if you don't, then Aftershoot has to use a converter in order to convert the raw images into DNG files in order to do it. So it does slow it down a little bit. It makes the overall process just a tiny bit slower. So I would definitely recommend using smart previews. So in order to create them, you just take whatever files you want to convert into smart previews, select all of them, go to Library, Previews, and build smart previews. Once you hit build smart previews, I've already built them, so it's just going to say that there was no build because everything's up to date. So I am working off of them right now. So whether you've run Aftershoot culling through your shoot or your wedding, I've basically just rated anything that I want to edit a 1-star rating. So you can tell that there are 296 images out of 2,077 that I took in the shoot, and those are the ones that are going to be delivered to the couple. This is a little bit more than what I usually deliver, and that's because the bride here is a photographer, so I wanted to make sure that I give her a ton of different options. So 296 images are going to be edited by Aftershoot. I've rated them a 1-star because I'm going to want to tell Aftershoot, hey, I want you to edit everything that's rated a 1-star. The next thing that I do is something that I've been trying out with all my recent weddings and shoots that I've done is I've created virtual copies for everything that I edit, and I have applied the upcoming profile, which is LANDON, and that is a black and white profile, which I'll talk through just in a little bit after we run the Leo version, which is a color version through it. So once everything is rated, I do create those virtual copies. I have already made the virtual copies labeled green, so I can differentiate them within within Aftershoot. But right now we're going to be working off of the 1-star ratings. So once smart previews are done, once you have rated everything, and once you've created your virtual copies and rated those a separate label, you're going to want to know where this catalog is. So talking about catalogs, it can get a little bit overwhelming at times, and I understand that catalogs can be tricky sometimes, but they're mostly just just a tool that'll help you stay organized. Most people will use one catalog for essentially everything that they're shooting, which I used to do that, but once I was introduced to Aftershoot, I started doing one catalog per shoot or per wedding. I just feel like that's kept me a little bit more organized. I just make sure that I have one folder within my desktop that's just Lightroom catalogs, and I separate in between weddings, engagement shoots, anything else that might be like family or personal. So everything's separated by folders, and just a lot easier for you to keep everything organized and all your edits organized within Lightroom and within Aftershoot too, which I'll show you. So if you don't know where your catalog folder is, there is a little bit of an easy way to find that out. You can go to Lightroom Classic here, you can go to catalog settings, and this particular catalog, this is a location, so it'll be much easier for you to find it like this instead of you kind of having to find it with the search function in your computer or anything else. So it'll be a lot easier to do it this way. Once you go here, you can go to show, and then this is the folder where your catalog is, and these are the catalog files, so they'll end in .lrcat. This is the V13, which is the newest version of Lightroom, which they've been upgraded. This is the older version, this is the newest version. So this version here is what you're going to want to use to edit the images. So now that you know where the catalog file is, you can go right into Aftershoot, but you definitely don't want to run any sort of editing because it won't work unless you close down Lightroom. So you're going to want to close down Lightroom. So quit Lightroom. We're going to skip the backing up this time, and then we're going to go into Aftershoot. So now we're going to go home here, and the first thing that we're going to do, so you can tell that I've been playing around with some of the profiles. You're going to go into new album. You can either start your calling all your images if you haven't called the wedding or the shoot yet, or you're going to start editing, which is what I want to do, since it's what I want to show you now. The next big thing would be for you to choose which profile you're going to use. So if you've purchased and downloaded Leo, then you would select Leo. This is just a trial version that I recently downloaded, but Leo is based off of this profile here. So I'm going to select this. I do want to use crop and straighten. I love the way that Aftershoot handles cropping and straightening. I think it does a really great job, and it actually is just a great tool that I've been using lately. So I want to do this. I also want to apply the Lightroom preset from AI Profile Training. I believe that's already locked in when you purchased Leo. So you want to just select Leo and crop and straighten. And once you do that, you're just going to want to show Aftershoot where your catalog that you're going to want to work on. So there's 3 different options that you can go through. You can either choose from recent. So these are all the catalogs that I've used recently in Aftershoot. So you can actually tell that it's here. Alice and Joey V13. So this is the one that I want to work on. So I can select this and then add it. I can just go to browse, and then I can go to my folder, which is all my Lightroom catalogs, and go to non-weddings, and then go to their shoot and select it that way. Or I can go into the actual file that I just found through Lightroom, and I can just drag it right into here. So when I drag it right into here, this is what's going to appear. There's going to be filters that are going to be applied, so I'm just going to unselect this just for the sake of the demonstration. So once the folder comes up, once the catalog comes up, it's showing you that there are smart previews connected, so that's good. You've already created smart previews, so you don't have to worry about Aftershoot converting any raw images while it's editing the image or before it edits the images. So that'll cut down that time that it's editing by a lot. So I'm going to select the folder, and once I select the folder, since there's no filters that are being applied here, then what it's going to do is it's going to select all the images. So right now, it thinks that you want it to basically edit everything that you photograph throughout the day. I personally actually do that with my weddings. So if I shoot 5,000-6,000 images, one of the biggest advantages of Aftershoot is that you're paying for unlimited editing. So I like to take advantage of that. So if I shoot 5,000 images, I'm gonna edit all of them. If I was paying a per image basis, which is what other companies will do, then obviously I can't afford to do that. But again, I think one of the biggest selling points for Aftershoot is that, hey, if I snap the shutter, I want that image edited. Excuse me. So when you go back and you're going through the results of Aftershoot, you're able to add anything that you might have missed. So you don't have to re-edit it. It's already been edited, and you're just adding to the final selection that you're going to deliver to your client. So I think that's huge, and it's something that has completely changed in my workflow, and I think it's super beneficial because it really cuts down the time of me having to re-edit any images that might not be edited. So for the sake of the presentation, I'm not going to edit all 2,000 images. I'm just going to go here, and I'm just going to tell Aftershoot that I just want it to edit the 296 images that I labeled a 1-star rating. So that's going to show down here. So it shows apply filters. If you want to apply profiles to different camera systems, you can also sort by camera. So if I just want to edit, for example, images that were taken with my GFX 50S, then I can do that. There were 94. If I just want to edit images that were taken with my R3, then that's 202 images. I personally like to just bunch everything up because I think the profile does a really good job at any camera system. And then I just make small adjustments based on which sensor I'm dealing with. So, so for right now, we're gonna do the 1-star, and we're gonna edit both camera systems that I shot. So let's edit the 296. We'll hit here, and we'll edit 296 images. And it's going to check the previews. It's already checked the preview, so it knows that it doesn't have to convert any raw images. It's going to process the images, and then it's going to edit them. And it should not take that long, but I am going to pause until it is done, and I'll be right back. Okay, so there's 15 seconds remaining. It looks like it took about 1.5 to 2 minutes to edit 296 images, I believe it was, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't think I've ever been able to edit that many images in such a short amount of time. So, but it is done. Now you have a couple different options. So you can just go right to Lightroom. If you go to review in Lightroom, you're just going to open up Lightroom, and it's going to show you the results. And then you can go in and start either correcting it or just going over the results and making small adjustments. You can adjust the profile based on your results. So if, for example, you see that you've applied Leo, and one of the things that I like to do when I'm shooting is that I like to expose to the right. So if you don't know what expose to the right is, it just means that I'm just overexposing my images by about a half stop to a full stop, because I was always taught that I should expose to the right in order to maintain all the information from the images. That's just sort of like a basic thing that you're taught at the beginning of your career. I just kind of kept with that. If you're shooting with a Sony or a Nikon, a Fuji sensor, a lot of shooters that are shooting with these sensors tend to underexpose their images, which is fine because those sensors are superior when it comes to shadow recovery, and Canon sensors tend to really excel at highlight recovery. So I'm a Canon shooter, so I like to recover highlights rather than recover shadows, because Canon sensors don't recover shadows as well as a Sony or Nikon or Fuji sensor. So if you are one of those shooters and you're underexposing, you might see that the results might be a little bit darker than you might be used to. So once we unlock this profile, the adjustment profile, you can click into here, and then you're going to be able to change that. So you're going to be able to go to tone, and then let's say it's just underexposed by probably what you would say maybe a half a stop, then you just go up and maybe bring it up a stop, and then save the settings, rerun the edits, and it'll correct for that underexposure, and the results will be closer to where you would want them without having to go into Lightroom and actually making adjustments for each image. So yeah, so that's what that would be like. Just gonna go back here, and then you would just edit again. I think that's one of the coolest tools that's going to be coming out soon. I love the idea of being able to adjust the profile based on what you're seeing as far as results. The overall colors and tonality, it's all going to be there, but I would probably say that a good portion of the results that you're going to be seeing from any profile are going to be based off of exposure and white balance. So if you're able to pinpoint those two things, you're going to be able to get some really, really close results to what I would be getting if I were shooting the whatever shoot you're editing. So, all right, so once we're here, we're going to go to review in Lightroom, and that's going to open Lightroom, and we're going to be able to go through the results. So now we're going to sort through 1-star rating, and then we can go through, for example, this image here. I'm going to go full screen so you have much more to work with here. And you can see, go to develop module. You can see the befores, after. So I think that does a really good job. I think this is pretty indicative of what my work looks like. I think this is, I don't need to do much adjustments. This is a before, after, before, after. So the skin tones, I'm always focusing on skin tones. Whenever I edit any image, I'm mostly looking at skin tones, and everything else is secondary, in my opinion. I do tend to shoot and edit a little bit warmer. So if you're not used to that and you prefer to go a little bit on the cooler side and still want that overall look that Leo gives, then you would just go here and you would just bring your white balance, either colder or warmer. Sometimes based on whatever sensor you're using, you might have to correct a tint just a tiny bit. I've edited a couple of Nikon files from the Z6 Mark II that just needed a little bit of tint correction, maybe go down to the greener side, and that helped a ton. Another thing which I talked about just now was the exposure. So if you're underexposing pretty significantly, you might get a little bit of a result closer to this. If you're getting a result like this, all you have to do is just bring up your exposure and maybe very seldomly bring down your contrast. So exposure is probably the most important thing that you can get right for any image, because exposure has a trickle effect on contrast and how muddy your skin tones are going to look. So if my exposure looks like this, most people will generally try to go in and say, all right, well, I need to fix my white balance because she looks very yellow, she looks very muddy. So we start changing all these other settings, when in reality all you have to do is just bring your exposure up to correct the white balance. Sorry, not to correct the white balance, to correct the skin tone. If you don't want that much contrast, then you can bring your contrast down. But generally speaking, just these two settings will fix most of this. This you should not have to touch. If you want to create more contrast through the whites and the blacks, You can always just bring your blacks down and bring your blacks up, and that's almost essentially the same as doing this. But the result that, let me go down here, this is the results straight out of Aftershoot. So again, if you prefer a little bit of a darker look or a little bit of a lighter look, I like this. So this is kind of what I would go for. This is completely straight out of Aftershoot, and you can see the results. So if you hit your forward slash and go before, after, before, after, and again, skin tones look great here. I don't really have to do much. But if you're shooting with some of these cameras that if you're underexposing and you are getting results like this, don't touch anything else other than getting the correct exposure, and you will get about 90% of the way there. So you're just bringing that exposure back and the colors will maintain the same. Once you go through everything, I usually will just do a quick run through to make sure that everything looks good, especially if I'm shooting with 2 different camera systems. So for example, if I am editing this, I know that my main system is my Canon, so I know that I'm gonna get pretty great results with my Canon because I'm used to shooting a certain way. I know how they're gonna react. I know that the warmth is exactly how I would shoot and how I would edit. But again, my GFX system is my secondary system, and I don't shoot it as much as my Canon. So what I would want to do is I would want to just go into my metadata here, and I would want to go into GFX and just make sure that my skin tones look good, make sure that everything looks okay, that looks adequate and looks cohesive with my Canon files. For example, like something like this, just to make sure that this is also within the same sort of look as my Canon files. If you look at the before and after, I do think that it's maybe a tiny bit underexposed in comparison to my Canon files, so I would probably just bring that up just a tiny bit. If we look at these skin tones here, these look pretty good. Some of the close-ups, so these maybe just a little bit underexposed. If you bring up the exposure, I'm not touching anything else, I'm just touching exposure because exposure controls a lot of the contrast and a lot of the warmth and the muddiness of skin tone. So you want to make sure that you're mostly starting off with exposure. So I'm just bringing exposure up and it fixes that. So if I were down here, you could see that's a little bit muddier, but if I'm going up by almost a stop or a half a stop, then that's basically exactly how I would deliver the image. So now that I have this one fixed, I can just go into a lot of these close-ups, and I want to sync. I would check none, and I would just go to exposure, and then hit this, and it would fix this skin tone on pretty much all the ones I select. So another thing that I do love from my profile that I know is not everybody's cup of tea is grain. It's something that I like to add to basically all my photos except for family portraits, but I understand that a lot of people might not like the grain because they associate it with noise. So for example, this is shot at ISO 100, but if I were to zoom in, it's very noisy or grainy, but I actually am choosing that as more of an artistic choice. I just enjoy doing adding grain to my images. So if you don't like the grain and you've purchased the profile, then just shoot me a message and I can send you free of charge. I can send you this addition to the Esteban collection Leo, and it'll allow you to control the grain and just the intensity of the grain. I'm usually like right here, but it'll just remove the grain up from the images if you just go to remove grain. Now, if I do hit that remove grain and I select all the images and I hit sync and I don't check anything other than just grain, that'll remove the grain from every single one of the images. So now when you go to any image, you'll see that there is no grain in the images. Here's one where it just looks slightly underexposed, probably because it's a Fuji sensor. And then I just have to, I'm not touching contrast, I'm not touching anything else, I'm just bringing up my exposure. So for maybe a few of them, you'll just have to do that. And that's generally what I would do. This is just completely out of focus, but I think I was focusing on the clouds there. So that's probably one that I wouldn't deliver. So this looks great. Before, after. Notice just how Aftershoot automatically knows that this is, the highlights are blown out here, which I did do on purpose. I wanted to focus on them, but it does try to recover that. So that's very, very good stuff. All right, so we talked about the grain, removing grain. I want to remove the grain off of everything, not just the GFX file. So I would just go here, select both cameras, then I would go to the develop module. I want to sync, and just sync. Actually, just make sure this image doesn't have grain attached to it. So now I would just sync the grain, and that removes grain from all of the images. So that's pretty much it. I'm just going to do a very quick run through all the images to make sure that the color and they're cohesive with everything else. These all look great. This is kind of how I wanted to shoot this. Yeah, these are all great, perfect. So these all look great. So now that I'm done doing this, I'm pretty much ready to export and I'm ready to upload. But one thing that I have been doing for my clients or my couples in the last couple of weddings and shoots is that I have been creating those virtual copies, and this is why I created virtual copy and I labeled them green, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit Lightroom, and since they're already labeled green, I'm going to go into Aftershoot, and I am going to create a new album, start editing, go to choose from recent, go to that same catalog, add the catalog. I'm going to select the folder. I'm going to go to filters. I'm going to go to green, not rated at 1 star, so that's 297 images. Apply the filters. And I'm going to go here and go to the Esteban collection, LANDON, which is the one that's going to be coming up. That's going to be added to the collection, and then I'm going to edit, and I will be right back once it's edited and we can look at those results. Okay, so we are back. We have about 16 seconds left, and then we're going to see some results from the LANDON version of the Esteban collection. And this is more of like a, I love gritty, very deep blacks, black and whites. Again, one of those things that I've been doing lately is that I've been actually delivering full galleries in black and white. I think that's where, I know in my area, where the industry is sort of heading. I have been asked several times this year whether I was able to deliver full galleries in black and white. People love black and whites, and with the ability of just editing an entire gallery and what took maybe just a minute and a half to edit 300 images, I think it's a huge advantage that will be perceived as just going the extra mile for our couples. I know that there's probably a little bit of pushback when it comes to that opinion, because a lot of people are very deliberate and very they like to communicate that black and whites only work in certain things. I kind of agree with that, but I like to make sure that I'm providing to my couples just as much as I possibly can. And if I can deliver a full gallery in black and white and not have that much more work, then I think that's worth it to me. So all right, so it's done editing it with LANDON. I'm going to go to review in Lightroom. It's going to open up Lightroom, and then we'll just sort by the color label, which will be green, and then we'll see some of the results here. So these are the results here. great. Again, grain, I love grain. I think with black and white it looks beautiful. I think it gives it texture. I love texture in my images, especially when I'm shooting wide open. My blacks, I still want them to be deep, but I also want them to have some sort of, maybe open up the shadows a little bit and still have that grittiness, that grain. It almost like reminds me of like like a filmic like a T-Max 400 or even like a P3200 if you shoot it underexposed. But again, you also have the option of the same thing. You have the option to remove the grain. So now you have this really beautifully sharp image. You have grain here. You have some grain here, which I love. But if you don't like it, then you can always remove the grain. And that's just totally up to you. I personally think that with black and white, I want to add as much grain as I possibly can because I just think it gives it a little bit more character. Another thing that I like to do, depending on the type of look that you want to go with, is the contrast. So when I talked about color, I talked about the importance of exposure. I think exposure is one of the most important things because it dictates how your contrast and how your oranges and your yellows are going to look. But with black and whites, your contrast is really going to dictate the overall end look of your images. So with a black and white, I can go with something like this if I want to go more like a deeper black and white, what's going to be more contrasty, which means that the blacks are going to be deeper. There's going to be a bigger change or difference between the whites and the blacks. So if I bring my contrast down, that's like a less contrasty film, which a lot of people like this. A lot of people enjoy this look. I do. I love this look. I do prefer more of a contrasty black and white, but sometimes this works a little bit better, depending on the scene, depending on the conditions of where you're photographing. And then like something like this, like I really love this look, especially if you look at the blacks here. I think they're very, very pronounced, which are cool. But sometimes you might want just something like this, which is more indicative of like an editorial look, which is also really cool. You can go even down as much as you want, bring the exposure up or down, and just there's a lot of range that you can do, especially when it comes to black and whites, especially when you're shooting with Sony sensors. So if you go to the GFX 50S images, we'll go to something like this, and again you have this grainy look here, which is really cool. And you can go to develop. You can remove the grain if you want more detail, but I'm going to go to a very grainy, and I'm going to go down on my contrast to really have that more of that like filmic look, which is really cool, and I really like to go for that look sometimes depending on where I'm shooting. So this is another good example here. Bring on the contrast. It just has, again, that very editorial film look, which I absolutely love. Same thing here. Let's see, we'll go to something like this. Bring that down. And you can change the overall look of a black and white pretty significantly by just changing the contrast. So again, depending on the look that you like, you want to go into the adjustment profile once it's available, and you just want to change that depending on how you prefer your images to look. So like I just absolutely love the way this looks. This just works with high contrast, but it also looks very nice with a lower contrast, but I tend to prefer this here. And this is what it'll look like without any grain, but I prefer green. So that's a preview of LANDON. I hope you like it. We're going to be making it available to anybody that purchased Leo, and I'm really excited to get everyone's opinion on it. I've been working very hard on it, and it's just been so awesome to create. And it's exactly how I edit my black and whites. and I can't wait to get it to everybody. I think that's all I have for now. If anyone has any questions, any suggestions, any feedback, I'm an open book. So if you do, then feel free to reach out to me. You can send me a message on Instagram, on Facebook, and I will eventually get back to you. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but I'm very, very excited to get to know a lot of you, and I appreciate all the people that have supported us already, because it is something that we've worked really hard on, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So again, thank you so much for your time, and I'm excited to get all this stuff over to everybody. So talk to you all later. All right.